Welcome to the Stone Table. This isn't a stage, it's a gathering place. Here, lifters of all kinds bring their stories. The heavy, the honest, and the hard-earned. Real voices, real weight. Shared like a good pour among friends. Recorded in Ontario, Canada, and open to lifters everywhere. Sláinte.
Welcome to the Stone Table Podcast. In this episode, we embark on an inspiring journey with Shaun Mullins, a passionate traveler and stone lifter from southeast Queensland, Australia. Join us as we explore Shaun's Great Australian Stone Tour, a unique adventure that blends travel, growth, and the art of stone lifting. Discover how Shaun's experience has shaped his life and inspired a community. Grab your favorite drink and get ready for an episode filled with stories of grit, growth, and purpose. Let's dive in.
So, Shaun, it's great to finally have you here after weeks of chatting back and forth.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me on your podcast so much. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so it's a really cool opportunity.
No, it's really great to have you here. So, as I do with every guest, just as we're sitting around the table, I'm at my stone table, you're in Australia. What are you drinking today?
So I'm going to be drinking a Bundaberg campfire rum.
Awesome. And so why did you pick this drink?
Initially, I was considering going with a Jameson. I'm very, very partial to my Irish whiskey as well. But I quite like Bundaberg rum. It's an Australian-made rum. And this campfire edition, I've only had once prior to now, and I really, really remember enjoying it. It was a really, really lovely drink. So I figured this is something that's pretty easy to sip on while having a chat. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is it smoky?
It sort of is. It's got hints of, it's bourbon barrel finished rum, and it has hints of vanilla and marshmallow and such.
So very, very marshmallow, s'more type campfire feeling.
It's
I've
pretty
got
special.
my go-to, but this was drank at the last stone gathering that I had here. And so essentially I'm drinking Arbor 13, which is my favorite whiskey. And the reason why I picked this with you today is because it's not complex at all. Like some whiskeys are very complex and layered, and this is really a very straightforward, mellow, and just it's easy. And I think if I've gathered anything about you over the last couple weeks is that you just kind of roll with it. And I think that's what this podcast interview will be like today. So are you ready to get to it?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Awesome. Cheers. Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Let's start at the beginning. I have a lot of questions for you because I've been following you on Instagram and seeing amazing lifts and scenery from the Australia tour that you're doing. But before that, let's kind of get like, who is Shaun? Where you come from? Like, I know you were born in Redcliffe, Australia, a bit down the road from a place called Scarborough. So what does home mean to you then? Like, how does your place shape your belonging? And like, how does that relate to stone lifting and travel and kind of this nomad experience approach to life that you have?
Yeah, I'm actually based in Scarborough right now. I'm at the Redcliffe Library rather, not Scarborough. And I guess it's a little bit of a return to home for me for this podcast. The hospital I was born in was just up the road. And it's interesting. I think I've always felt quite drawn to this area. I do love it here. But ever since I was quite young, I'd always felt a compulsion to be as far away from wherever I was as I possibly could be. And not because I didn't like where I was, but I really, really wanted to get out and explore and see what was out there in the world. And I think even at the age that I'm at now, I've done a reasonable job of that, but I'm also aware that the world is an enormous place. And I mean, I think I could probably explore Australia alone for the rest of my life and not see all of it. It's a big place, and I know Canada's an enormous place as well, and that's very, very high up on my bucket list. But
it's a must visit for sure.
Yeah, it looks incredible there. And I mean, even Tasmania, our little island that's sort of off the south of mainland Australia, that's been so high up on my bucket list for about 6 years now. And I just purchased my tickets to get myself and my vehicle across. And you need to book months in advance. So I can't actually get there until February next year. But sort of after this podcast, I'm looking at starting to make my way down in that direction through New South Wales, the Australian Capital Territory, and down through Victoria. And I've got people to meet up with all the way there, all the way through these states as well. So I think it would be really, really cool to get out and experience more and actually have a sense of purpose, not just wanting to go a long way away and sort of see what's out there, but to actually go somewhere and meet up with people and lift stones that have been placed by others around the country now. There will always be home. And I think to a degree, to me, wherever my family are will sort of feel like home to me. My father sort of is up on the Sunshine Coast, and my parents, my mum and my stepdad and my sister live not too far from here. So I'll always gravitate back to this area for visits at least, but I'm very, very excited to be getting back out on the road again and sort of experiencing some more of what's out there, particularly in the way of stones this time.
And so how did stone lifting become a thing for you? Because you've done Muay Thai, I think, and some other kind of athletics and other sports. How did you get into stone lifting?
I think a lot of the things that I've done previously have probably been quite ADHD driven. I was diagnosed as a young boy, and I think throughout my life, I've felt compelled to try a lot of different things. And I've sort of been that jack of all trades, master of none a lot of times. But there are a handful of things that have really grabbed on to me, or I've really grabbed onto them perhaps. And I've thrown myself at 1,000,000%. And without patting myself on the back too much, I think I've gotten relatively good at a handful of things relatively quickly because they've become my whole existence, and everything else sort of fades away a bit. And I don't know, I think stone lifting, I'd seen bits and pieces of it previously online with some other people that I follow, and, the algorithm throwing it up in my face.
Mm-hmm.
My mum's Indigenous Australian and my dad's, we're Irish on my dad's. And I guess there was probably an element of feeling like it was something that I was supposed to find, at least from the Irish side of things, because it's a really, really big part of Irish culture and history, and it was nearly lost there. So, the work that David Keown is doing and Martin Gallagher and all of the people in Ireland and then in Scotland as well, like there are so many people worldwide that are contributing to the growth and hopefully the healthy development of stone lifting. I guess I wanted to be a part of that.
And I think it's interesting because I've had my own mental health challenges throughout my life. And and this was not part of our line of discussion, but I do want to divert here before we go and talk about the tour. But do you think that for having ADHD, do you think that stone lifting is actually quite therapeutic for it because you are grounded, you're focused on one thing, it's a puzzle, not every stone is the same. You can you can exhaust like multiple stones. Have you ever given that any thought for people who face same ADHD challenges like you do?
I think I'll give it more thought now that you've mentioned it. I'm always happy to learn more about myself, and I think there are so many facets to who we are as human beings that often go unconsidered, but I'm really interested to have people share with me different points of view, and sometimes like this it makes me sort of think, yeah, look, that's probably a really good point. It definitely helps me to feel more grounded and focus on something. I really enjoy the puzzle aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've said to quite a few people since I've gotten started, a lot of people in the gym and, friends of mine sort of follow me now, and they probably, some of them think it's a little bit strange and a bit odd. Why would you want to go out and pick up stones? I'm like, dude, just give it a go. Have a crack at it. It's really, really special. But there are a lot of people as well seem to think it's a really cool thing. And I've said to them, a barbell's a barbell's a barbell. You can change stance or grip or the weight that's on it. And it's not to take anything away from barbell work. I absolutely love the powerlifting aspect of things, and that's been a really big part of my training for stones. I think getting out there and having something that is different every time. So every stone is a puzzle. They're all different, and you can have something that's lighter, that feels a heck of a lot heavier than it is because of the shape of it or the weight distribution or the handles or any number of factors. And yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the relationship of ADHD to that. But I think anything that I've been able to really, for want of a better word, punish myself with and really, really throw myself into that's has helped with it. There's something about stones is really special. It's really grabbed on, and I'm so grateful to have found it.
No, it definitely, I think it was a huge part of my mental health journey, and it'll be interesting to see how this evolves for you. And so talking about evolution, so we go from seeing things on Instagram and saying, hey, that's kind of something I'd like to try, to fully launching now. And I guess this is part of the whole, like, you zero in and you go all into something. Now we've got a Great Australian Stone Tour, which is a huge, massive undertaking. And both physically and mentally, you're living out of your Land Rover, from what I understand. Like, what inspired you to take on this challenge? And tell us about it. Like, I need to know the details about how you charted this out and who you're seeing along the way.
It's still very much a work in progress. I guess the idea sort of evolved a little bit along the way, as things do. Initially, I sort of watched a few people, and there were a few people in particular that really sort of jumped out at me. And I think the more, as the algorithm probably works, the more videos that I watched in relation to stone lifting, the more of them it threw at me. And I saw some people like Dave Nisbet, Caveman Dave Man.
Yes.
I
Fellow
think
Canadian. Shout out to Edmonton Stones of Strength. Yeah.
he's fantastic. I started harassing him pretty early in the piece, and I reached out to him, and I was really, really surprised to even hear back to begin with. And that's happened a lot of times within stone lifting. Everybody's so wonderful. This community is incredible. And I think I've said to a lot of people, there are some really good communities out there. Like I lived for rock climbing for a while there, and the rock climbing community is incredible as well. I just think there's a bit of a difference. The stone lifting community is not like anything I've ever come across before. And I reached out to Dave and sort of said, hey, man, I'm looking at getting into this. And, I've watched a bunch of your videos and I'm really inspired by what you do. And he thought that, he got back to me with a voice message, and he sort of said that was really cool. And I sent him, there was a video of me lifting a stone on top of a mountain with very poor form. I had no idea what I was doing, but I got out there, and I've been really into running previously as well. And so I ran to the top of this mountain, and took a good minute to sit down once I got there. But I ran up to the top with the intention of trying to find a stone to lift with a really scenic view in the background. And as it turned out, probably for the purposes of safety, there were no loose stones or anything that was sort of accessible anywhere near the trail section. So I had to sort of stumble down the side of the mountain, sort of about 10 or 15 meters, and find this stone. I'll get back up to this spot where I could get a scenic view in the background. And I sent that through to him, and he's like, hey man, like that was pretty good, especially considering you haven't really done this before. But yeah, perhaps you could try doing this and you could try doing that. And he gave me a few pointers. And I think that in itself sort of solidified things for me a little bit. I was like, this guy who's sort of got this huge following and all of this stuff going on took the time to give me a few pointers and a bit of advice. And that sort of, not only the lifting of the stone, but just that interaction sort of clicked something for me. I'm like, man, this guy's really cool. And this stone lifting thing, even if it gave me a couple of love taps on the cheek when I was trying to put it on my shoulder, it just, as you've probably heard a bunch of people say, something sort of clicked. And I was like, I want to make more of my existence about this. And it kind of snowballed a bit from there. I was watching more and more people. I was watching a lot of David Keown's stuff, was watching a lot of stuff that Martin Gallagher was doing from Ireland as well. And we've actually, I've spoken with both of these guys quite a bit. And again, it blows me away that they've got any time to have a chat to some random dude from Australia. But they've been really, really encouraging. And then also John, Travel, Lift, Stones, Repeat.
Yes.
Has sort of, he didn't reach out. I reached out to him, but he got back to me and sort of encouraged me. He planted the seed, I think, for the Great Australian Stone Tour a little bit, in that we were speaking about how it's relatively new in Canada and the United States. But he said to me, there's nothing to stop you from creating something in Australia. There might not be a whole lot of history. And I want to find out about this as well. Like with my mum being an Indigenous Australian or a First Nations Australian, I think it would be really, really interesting on a personal note, as well as to share with the rest of the world, if there is much of a history of stone lifting as a test of strength or anything like that within First Nations culture in Australia. But as far as I'm aware at this stage, or have found out, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, I'd love to find out that there's this huge history of it. But there didn't appear to be a lot yet. And John sort of said to me, hey, man, there's nothing to stop you from creating something. And whilst they might not be historic stones yet, in 50 or 100 years' time, people keep lifting them. They will be. And I was like, maybe he's right. Hey, like maybe this is something that's that I could do. And I guess I just wanted to try to connect people, because I knew that there were a handful of other people in Australia who were lifting stones. And I started following them on Instagram as well, and reached out to a couple of them and had a bit of a chat. And I guess I just wanted to connect those people. And very early in the piece, I had one gentleman who I considered as a friend now, who we've just spoken so much since this journey began. And he sort of reached out to me really early in the piece and said, thank you for what you're doing, man. Like, I felt pretty alone in this. I didn't realize that other people were really doing it until I started jumping on Instagram and seeing people from around the world lifting stones. And I still didn't know that there were a whole lot of people in Australia, you know what I mean? But I think we've forged quite a friendship now as a result of that. A shout out to Jay and over in Western Australia. And that's really, really special to me. And I think I've formed some degree of friendship with most of these people around the country because I'm in contact with the people who are regularly contributing stones to the Great Australian Stone Tour, and there have been quite a few people be extremely giving with their time. And with regards to hospitality as well, like a handful of people that have sort of said, when you get down to this area, let me know and we'll catch up and lift some stones, or even, I'll help you out with some work in the area if you're going to be here for a bit. We can provide you with a place to stay. And again, it just goes to show that even with a relatively new community here within Australia, it's just full of incredible people. I think the community aspect that's being forged as a result of the tour and people's ability to just be good humans is really phenomenal. But I also wanted us to have some stones here, and I've got some really big plans for linking some of the stones in some areas that I've got mapped out on the itinerary to travel to that I would like to link to some history within the area. And whilst the stones themselves might not have a whole lot of history yet, I think it would be cool to, as I said, link some history from the area to those stones and, maybe make it a little bit of an educational experience as well, perhaps. I'm not sure. It's a rolling plan.
No, that's phenomenal. And I know that here in Canada, we have done the same. And in my view, and it'll be debated, but I believe that once you lift a stone and place a story on it, it becomes history, right? So it might be a young history, but it definitely has the makings of a historic stone. So I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And what I have found is that the community, or my communities that I've created, is global. And this podcast takes it one step further for me and actually have like face-to-face interactions with people. So you're definitely right. The fact that you jumped at this opportunity, like there's just a lot of really awesome, amazing people in this community and ready and willing to help and spread the good word of what stone lifting can be and do for you. That's super cool. So let's dive in then to so where are you starting the stone tour? And where is it taking you? You mentioned you're going down to Tasmania. So give me a little bit of a detail of how you're getting down.
Okay, so currently, as we've sort of covered, I'm based in southeast Queensland. I'm in Redcliffe today. I went up to visit my dad last week on the Sunshine Coast, and I guess things kind of started there in a way. There's a young guy, Ronaldo, from the Philippines who came over here. He's been following the page, the Great Australian Stone Tour page, just about since I started it. And Ronaldo reached out to me very early in the piece from the Philippines and said, "Hey man, I'm looking at moving to Australia at some point relatively shortly. I'm hoping to get over there and lift some stones, and I can't wait." And I was like, "That's really cool, man. Awesome. Like it'll be cool to catch up when you get over here and whatever else." And we'd had a couple of brief interactions since then. And he reached out to me about a month ago now and said, "Hey, I'm in Australia." He actually tagged my Crocodile Dundee page and the Great Australian Stone Tour page in a video of him lifting some stones in New South Wales. And I got to say, like, I loved how respectful he was putting down stones. They had no history. They didn't have names. They were just as much of just a stone as a stone can be. And he still placed them down respectfully. And I was like, this guy, he's good people. We'd been chatting back and forth since then, and I found out that he had actually based himself up here as well. He was visiting New South Wales, but he was based in Queensland. And he came out with me about 2 weeks ago now and lifted. I got to run my first ever little sort of stone tour and take a couple of other people along to some of the stones that I had placed out in Cedar Creek at Samford. That was a really, really special experience for me that I'll forever be grateful for. He came and he lifted the Cedarburg stone. He came and he also lifted the Black Creek stones, and he surprised himself. Like I think he said to me that his previous PB that he knew of was about 86 kilos in stone terms, and the Cedarburg stone was 92 kilos, and the larger of the Black Creek stones is 109 kilos. So he did so well to lift those that day, and I think everybody was really happy for everybody. And then we found out that he had gone up to a place called Noosa Heads, and Noosa is on the Sunshine Coast. It's couple of hours from here. He found a really, really unique looking stone and lifted it, but he didn't have scales or anything like that. So he just sort of sent me a video of him lifting and then a video of where it sort of was on the beach. And I was like, I'm going to go lift this stone. I need to go check it out. Like, it looks really cool. And I got up there, found the stone. It was buried under a bunch of sand. So it's since been placed on top of another flat stone with a couple packed around it. And hopefully it'll sort of be a little bit more visible. But lifted and weighed that, and it ended up being 103 kilos. So he'd already smashed his PB and just didn't know it yet. I sort of put that stone up on the page and said, no, this is your one, man. Like, you might not have been here for all that long, but you're a part of this now, and you found this stone, and it's a privilege to me to have gone and lifted it. It's been really, really cool networking with people from all over. I was listening to a voice message from Dave Nisbet last night, and he said, how cool is this, man? Like, you're working on something and creating something, and you're getting to network with people from all over the world now, and some of them are coming and trying this thing that you've started. And again, it's a collective. Ronaldo found and placed that stone. It's a really, really cool experience. So that was, I guess, sort of the start of the tour. I've lifted and weighed and sort of placed a whole bunch now that I haven't posted up on the page yet. I think heading south from here is probably next on the agenda. I can't get across to Tasmania for about 3.5 months. You have to book a long way in advance to get a vehicle across. But the intention, I guess, is to head down into New South Wales next, catch up with Alan Willis from New South Wales. And then there are a couple of other people that I'm hoping to catch up with. There are a couple of strongmen, one being Ben Madden, who the Madden Stones in South Australia, which are placed at the Uradla Hotel, are named after. And Ben actually brought Strongman as an event to South Australia. And then another guy who I'm going to catch up with when I'm down there, Jordan Stevens, or Biggie, who holds 3 Guinness World Records, and he's an incredible, strongman, athlete, and human being. He's been impossibly supportive throughout all of this. Had these stones in, with the help of a stonemason and another guy who made incredible handles for them, created for Ben Madden and named them after him. So that's going to be a really, really special experience as well, getting down there to them. But I think South Australia, Western Australia, and the Northern Territory come after New South Wales, the Australian Capital Territory, possibly the Jervis Bay Territory as well, and then down into Victoria. And I'm going to sort of try to spread visits to those areas out over the next few months, do a little bit of work along the way to try to replenish some funds. And then, end of February over to Tasmania to catch up with Onno Holling, which is going to be really cool as well. And Onno's created a few spaces within Tasmania now where there are multiple stones that sort of range between, I think, roughly 30 kilos and 100 kilos. And that's sort of a little bit reminiscent of Max Mooney on the Sunshine Coast created the Landsborough lifting stones, which I've thought about renaming the Mooney stones. I don't know how you feel about that, Max, but let me know if you like that idea, because he's an awesome guy as well. Has invested a lot of time in assisting me. Gave me some pointers as well. Like he was doing this before I was, and created this space on the Sunshine Coast for other people to attend and have a go at stone lifting. There are stones there ranging from about 55 to 165 kilos, which is currently a bit above my pay grade, but we'll get there. Yeah, from Queensland sort of down and just in a clockwise direction around the country.
So they're really accessible, the weights for these stones. Is there any female stone lifters that you've come across in Australia?
Yeah. There are a few people. I've had my girlfriend's tried lifting a couple of them, which has been really cool. And she's only relatively small, but she's very strong for her size. Yeah, she's definitely lifted a few of the smaller, more accessible stones. I think there are a couple of people. There's a lady named Anita. I think she's Tiki Lifts on Instagram, and her husband have been out and lifted the Black Creek stones, or lifted the smaller of those. And it made me sort of think, I've beat myself up a little bit with regards to the weights of some of these stones, in that I'm not trying to make excuses, but I've really punished myself with not only the stone lifting, but the gym training. And I've given myself pretty chronic golfer's and tennis elbow. So that's one of the things that I think I'm most concerned about with regards to this stone tour. I'd really love to be able to travel around the country and give all of these stones, and in particular the larger, heavier stones that some of these really strong guys have been lifting, the best shot that I can. But it's sort of become apparent to me as well that in doing so, I'm pushing injury that may or may not end up giving me some grief. And I'm still going to give them all a go. But and I think without the injury, some of these guys are just a lot stronger than I am. They're a lot bigger. And a couple of them have a fair bit of faith in me. They're like, yeah, you'll be able to lift it. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. I'll give it a red hot crack. But yeah, I think it's felt really good to me as well that I put a couple of different stones in a couple of locations, and at Black Creek is a 109 kilo stone. I'm sorry that I'm not doing the conversion into pounds. I can't do it off the top of my head, but 109 kilos, and then there's one that's 55. And Anita and her partner went out there, and they said, we'll be back for the heavy one at some stage, but for just a moment, we've lifted the 55 kilo one. And I thought I think that was a good choice, leaving a couple there that made it a little bit more accessible. I think in getting around Australia, as I said, I think some of these big heavy ones that the guys are lifting, I'll definitely come back to have a go at, but some of them are probably going to be a bit above my pay grade. Like, I'm not a particularly big guy. I've gained a lot of strength throughout training and a whole array of things, and especially throughout this journey, because it's given me so much purpose to try to gain strength. I've sort of stopped worrying as much about the aesthetic side of things and how I look, and just wanted to, in as much of a controlled way as I can, lift big, eat big, get stronger, and put myself in a better position to lift bigger and bigger stones. But I think at the moment, a lot of the ones that I place probably will be a little bit more accessible to people because, yeah, at the end of the day, like, I'm still relatively early in this journey. I think I've done a bit of strength training on and off, but then I've done rock climbing and, as you said, the Muay Thai and running and all of these sort of contradictory type things. And yeah, I'm obsessing now about being able to lift large stones, but I think a lot of the ones that I place will be half accessible to people.
No, that's fantastic. And just speaking about the training, so as you're going along on this tour, like, what are you doing for training? Or are you just going to simply sea rock lift?
Yeah, look, I think there'll be a little bit of sea rock lift involved. And I think the primary reason for that is probably going to be related to the injury side of things. I've spent a bit of time in the gym. I've had a local gym that I'd been going to quite a lot, which was a Snap Fitness at Deception Bay. And Snap Fitness, I think, is quite good in that they have a pretty wide array of equipment. They have power racks and such for doing your squats and deadlifts and such, and they have benches, all those kinds of things. I love the idea of joining a strongman gym, but I think they're a little bit more sort of specialist. And when you're a member of one, you're sort of a member at that strongman gym, whereas Snap Fitness there are worldwide gyms, but there are quite a few based around Australia as well. And I think I'll retain my membership with Snap just so I can keep on showing up to them whenever one is accessible. A lot of the training that I've been doing in more recent times has been sort of squat based, though I've done a lot in the way of good mornings. I was obsessed with deadlifts for a while, and I think that I might have sort of pushed myself a little bit hard with some of I definitely pushed myself a bit hard with some of the things that I was doing. And I was seeing a lot of improvement very quickly, but I think it came at the expense of having to pump the brakes really aggressively. I've got a TRX suspension trainer that I plan on utilizing a little bit, but I think a lot of what I do as I'm traveling around is sort of going to probably be stone lifting based, just to give myself the best opportunity possible to lift the stones when I get to them. Like, I figure I'd love to be thrashing myself at the gym, but if I thrash myself out too much there and exacerbate this injury, it's going to make it that much harder than when I attend these stones to lift them. So I'm actually not sure what the balance is going to be at this stage. I'm really hoping that I can squeeze a bit of both in, um, and I no doubt will if I've got a bit of time between stones and I've got a gym nearby, then I'll get amongst that as well. But yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of sea stone lift type of thing
Yeah,
going on.
and I think that makes a lot of sense. It's really about the time under tension. So the more you lift the stones, and the more that you work those into your program, the better it'll be for the lifts that you're actually attempting. And that's what I found in my programming, was that when I increased the number of days that I started lifting stones, I saw monumental improvements. And I think that was one of the reasons why when I went to Scotland this fall, I hadn't really trained weight training for months, because I'm also a Highland Games athlete, but I had been training stones and then increased the frequency, and I got, some lifts that I wasn't expecting while I was there. So I think that approach is sound, and a lot of others listening, I'm sure, would agree. that more time under stone tension is where it's at.
Yeah, I think, I've heard the term before, or the saying, train for what you do. And across the board, like, I think Dave has given me some advice, as have a handful of other people. But another area that I think I've learned a lot and I've absorbed a lot of information very quickly is I binged the the Stone Table podcast, but that's going to happen as well. I'm definitely going to binge this. But yeah, the Stones of Strength podcast. I've listened to every episode of that they've released now, and I came into it pretty late in the game, and I just binged it. I'd be driving from work to the gym. Every opportunity I get, I was listening to and taking in information. But I just think overall, listening to people who, are really passionate about stone lifting and the different approaches that people take to training, I guess was what I was, the most relevant thing that I was trying to get at here. Some people like Jamie McGregor,
Yes,
or previously,
that's my coach.
Yeah, he's magnificent. And I think if I remember correctly, Jamie doesn't tend to lift stones unless he's going on a stone tour. He tends to do most of his weight and his lifting in the gym and with weights, and then he sort of keeps the stones as like almost a sacred thing. And then there are some people at the opposite end of the spectrum that almost exclusively lift stones. And it blows me away. My mate over in Western Australia, Jay, that I mentioned, he lifts stones more than probably anybody that I know. Like, he's posting up almost daily videos, I think, of him lifting stones. He's collected some for at home, and he's constantly getting out in the wild and just picking things up. He's the most sea stone lift guy I've ever come across so far, and I think that's really impressive as well. So I guess I'm somewhere in the middle of the spectrum there. Like, I want to be lifting stones as much as I can, and I know that that's probably what's going to improve me with lifting stones as much as possible. But I also think that, there are supplementary exercises that I can be doing that will help me work my body and help me work sort of those muscle groups utilized for lifting stones in different ways, and that those supplementary exercises will hopefully be beneficial, and that will translate to stone lifting as well. So, yeah, a
And
little bit of a
what are those supplementary exercises that you're considering?
I guess anything in the gym. Like, I very, very much enjoy squats, which is a bit masochistic of me, but I love my squats. I was obsessed with deadlifts, and I still am, but I've sort of supplemented or substituted good mornings in where deadlifts were for a little while, just to try to give these elbows a break. I really enjoy bench press as well. So I guess the three, main power lifts, and then from that, sort of in rank of importance to me at least, I'll throw in some overhead press. Most of what I do, I try to utilize free weights, and then down the line, I guess I'll do a little bit. I don't do very much in the way of isolation lifts, but every now and again, I'll throw in some. I like doing a lot of pull-ups. I've never gotten hugely into calisthenics, but I definitely see the benefit in being able to move my own body around as well. So a lot of body weight exercises are pretty good. And I think I'll probably lean relatively heavily on that whilst on the road, just because I've got access to a branch to hang off of and ground to do push-ups and such on. So yeah, I guess all of that side of things. And then I really want to start running more again. I very much enjoy running.
Love running. Love it.
This year, I started doing shorter runs and built it back up to doing sort of 12K trail runs, roughly somewhere thereabouts. I love running. I'd like to do some more of that. I really enjoy hiking, and I've always, even in school, carried far more than I need to. So my pack always weighs an obscene amount. But I think a lot of the things that I enjoy doing or have done over the years sort of tie in some way. You know what I mean? It's all sort of been a benefit in some respect, even if it's just helping develop some resilience.
And most of it has been outdoors, right? Like, you're talking hiking, stone lifting, even your rock climbing. And I actually wanted to kind of touch base there. Like, a lot of the great stone lifters are some of my favorites. Like Hannah, big shout out to her. Hannah Lindsay, she was a rock climber, is a rock climber. Do you feel like it's translated for you to some of your grip on picking up the harder stone?
I definitely don't think it could have hurt. And when I say that, it hurt a lot because, again, it was something else that I hyperfixated on. I did quite a lot of outdoor climbing for a while, but my hyperfixation with rock climbing came in the form of speed climbing. I got to a point where the first time I tried it, I managed to get to the top of the wall, and I was pretty happy with that, but I did it in 32.9 seconds. And I think it was somewhere between 3 and 6 months later, I won a competition in speed climbing, and I'd reduced that time down to 6.56 seconds. And Again, it was hyperfixation, a lot of rolling around on the floor in agony, living in a cloud of deep heat, and held together by climbing tape. It was pretty aggressive training that I was doing, and it was all just sort of self-fueled obsession. I got some pointers from people and some really helpful advice, but never had a coach or anything really. I just went and just did it over and over and over again. And, with that bit of advice that I received from people who were more in the know and some really incredible athletes as well, I managed to improve a lot. And I think, there seems to be a carryover between grip strength and stone lifting and rock climbing. You know what I mean? There are, I think John, Travel Lift Stones Repeat, did a lot of rock climbing previously as well. It had been a little while since I've done it though. It's really funny, and I don't see this happening with the stone lifting side of things, but the obsession that I've had with things at times, just like that, I'm like, squirrel, what's the next thing? And I essentially won this competition, and I climbed once after that because they had taken down the top 10 leaderboard because it was becoming really, really difficult for anybody new to get onto it. It was there was a lot of leapfrog happening, but it was really difficult for anybody new to get on it. And I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to be on that leaderboard. So I went and I did one climbing session after winning the comp, and then just sort of haven't done it since, which is it's really strange to me the way that my brain works, and I'm still trying to sort of work that out and get my head around how my head gets around things. Even though it's been a while, I guess I feel like I cultivated some grip strength throughout that rock climbing side of things. That's definitely helped in
I
some
know
capacity.
that's one thing that I'm definitely going to be working on, and I've seen Raspberry Ape has a lot of programming around that, and that's
Dude,
something I want to definitely look at this winter.
yeah, what an amazing human. Like he's
Right?
I've actually spoken with Daniel a tiny bit as well about this elbow pain side of things, and he sent me like an elbow recovery program. And yeah, I think I've learned quite a lot from him, even just watching him before I reached out. But yeah, he's
He's
something else, eh?
phenomenal. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal. So I guess moving into then the lifting of stones that you've done so far, like what's the most memorable lift that you've done, and like why does that stand out in particular?
It's a little bit difficult, I think, to probably pick a most memorable lift, but I think one of my favorite stones seems to be the Cedarburg stone out at Cedar Creek, and it's nowhere near the heaviest stone, and I'm not even sure why, but it's always my go-to one whenever somebody, like even the guy at the place where I got my shirt made up, he asked me, "Hey, what's this all about?" And I was like, "Have you ever heard of natural stone lifting?" And he's like, "Not really. What is it?" And I'm like, "Pretty well exactly what it sounds like, man." But I'm trying to condense my ridiculously long explanation of what it's all about. And I think part of my explanation involves me cracking out a video or two. And I seem to resonate towards that one. Like I love the area that it's in. It's a very special place to me. And even just in the background, it's a really lovely spot and place on the edge of the creek. And the stone, as strange and all as it probably sounds to some at least, sort of spoke to me. I was like, no, this is the one I need to lift this. And it's also the first stone that I've taken somebody to on, like I said, that little mini stone tour with Ronaldo and his partner. We went down there, and it's just, it's a little bit special to me. Yeah, I think the Cedarburg stone's probably my favorite so far.
And so, sorry, can you just give me the background on that? Like, did you find that stone? Did you place that stone?
Yeah, so that was one that I placed. It's at a place called Cedar Creek near Samford in southeast Queensland. It's not that far from Brisbane City, which is the capital city here. And it's a really lovely location. I went there with friends probably about 5, maybe even 6 years ago now. And I had heard the name of the place mentioned a whole bunch. And I feel like it was almost one of those places that for a little while, I think I thought, this is a bit overrated, and just didn't put the time or effort into going there. And when I finally did with this group of friends, I think I went back. I couldn't even count how many times over the next few months before I sort of went on another little travel around the countryside. I visited it so many times because it was such a gorgeous place. The waterfalls and the streams and the creeks and now stones, like stones everywhere. It's unbelievable. And that's something else that I found with stone lifting is that I'm looking at the world through different eyes now, and I'm seeing it through a different lens. All of these places that I'd been to previously, and I was like, this is beautiful, and the stones obviously made up part of the landscape. But now I'm like, I'm going to these places for the stones and getting to enjoy everything else that comes along with the area. But I have such a sense of purpose for going to these locations. And I think that's sort of translating over into the Great Australian Stone Tour. I want to get around the country and see as much as I can anyway, but being able to go to these places and have such a purpose and meet specific people. And, I think that side of things is really cool. With the Cedarburg stone, I went out there looking for stones. I had a few locations, and I think that's part of what I'm sort of doing as well, as I'm setting locations initially and saying, I want to go here and I want to find a stone or, a few stones in this particular spot. I put my hands on a couple that were probably a little bit ambitious prior to that one. Sort of it jumped out at me as just being it's quite a nice shape. I think it's relatively well rounded, but you can still get purchase on it. It sort of has some reasonable handles. It's 92 kilograms, so again, not the heaviest one, but it was just a nice, I don't know. There's something special about that stone to me, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's a beautiful spot and it's a beautiful stone.
And was it one of your first though, right?
No, I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's necessarily one of my first, but it was one of the earlier ones that I placed.
Yeah.
It was sort of, it was relatively early in the piece. And there were a handful so far that I haven't put up on the tour yet that I've lifted as well. And for whatever reason, I'm sort of like, one of the things that I've been trying to do is spread the posts on the stone tour out amongst other Australian lifters. So I don't want it just sort of be me, and then somebody else. Like, I've been trying to make sure that I'll pepper myself in there a little bit, but also give everybody else a like a bit of a
Shout
I don't know,
out.
like just give them a space on it as well. So there are a handful of others that I haven't put up, and sometimes I'll have something sort of in the chamber and ready to go, and then like the Cedarburg stone, I guess I'll come across it and be like, nah, this is the one that's got to go up. Like, this is a really cool one. So I think it was pretty early in the piece, definitely, but sort of not the first, just a special one.
Yeah, well, I travel with another woman and we do stone lifting and Highland Games, and we've added Australia to our bucket list of travel spots to lift stones next. So you may see me there. But speaking of bucket lists of stones, what stones are on your list to lift outside of us or inside or outside of Australia? And do you have any intentions of like traveling, to Iceland, Scotland?
Yeah, I have every intention of trying to travel as much as I can. I think I've really started to prioritize living life. And I've always been trying to do that, but I think there have been times that I've ended up letting life sort of get on top of me, and I've felt a bit like it's happening to me, and I haven't really been focused on a lot of the things that I'd like to be doing. And I guess the Great Australian Stone Tour represents so many different things to me, but on a personal note, I think it's sort of almost the beginning of that journey and a phase of my life that I try to make sure that I'm getting out there and really doing the things that I want to do. And in particular, while I have the capacity to do them, that's been really heavily supported by my mum and dad a lot throughout the years. But mum's had some pretty significant health problems over the last couple of decades, and I think they've sort of prevented her from doing some of the things that she probably would have liked to have done. So she's very, very, very strongly encouraged me to get out and live life and do the things that I want to be doing while I can. I think Canada is super, super high up on my bucket list. And it has been forever, like years and years and years prior to even sort of discovering stone lifting. Dave Nisbet said to me recently, I think Canada's a beautiful place and definitely come and visit, but if stone lifting's your main priority, get to Ireland and get to Scotland and Iceland and these places that have such a deep-rooted history in it. And I think based on my heritage, Ireland probably has to be my number one location. And that's been top of my bucket list since I was, young. And again, it's just that it's another example of something that I've desperately wanted to do, but I haven't really prioritized as much as I probably ought to have. So that's super up there, and I can't wait to meet David Keown and Martin Gallagher and all, these incredible people there. I think part of my problem is that I try to stack things on, though. I'll be like, well, if I'm going to Ireland, Scotland's only just across the way, and then, I'm pretty well in the UK, right? And I might as well get down to Wales as well. And I want to try to make a pretty decent European trip of that. And there are so many other places around Europe as well. I'm not sure how I'm going to swing that one. I might have to do a couple of flights over that direction. Getting down to Spain, I believe it is, where they do their basque lifting. Like there's just so much cool stuff around the world, and there's so much travel that I'd love to do even external to stone lifting. But again, it's given me a purpose to go to specific places. And I love that. I think that's been really cool.
No, and I think this is a large part of a lot of people come to stone lifting for different reasons. And one of my main motivations was, as I said, like it was part of my mental health journey. It allowed me to get grounded again. And, I reached a point where it was pretty bad. And I just decided that I couldn't live a life that didn't align with my soul and my purpose anymore. And so stones became a large part of that and this community, traveling to Scotland repeatedly. But I think hearing you say that it's really just about living the life that's true, like living a true life while you have it here. You're only given it once. And I think when we were talking about your parents, your dad's 75, he's still active and going. Would he be interested in doing stone lifting? Have you done it with him yet?
So my dad is such a huge inspiration to me, and I told him this when I was visiting him recently, and I've tried to make sure I have, several times now. I'm like, dude, you're just the coolest guy I know. To be at the age that he is, and he still seems pretty young for a 75-year-old. He still surfs. He gets out. He was, I think, for a little while there running with his kelpies, but now he sort of tends to walk them a bit more. But he takes them for a good walk every morning. We had one night, I pre-purchased myself a larger bottle of this Bundaberg Campfire rum, full disclosure. And it was necessary to buy a couple of little bottles, let's just say that. And he stayed up with me all night and we had some drinks. And I think he got about 3 hours sleep and then got up and he still went for his trek with his kelpies. And he walks up this set of 81 stairs every morning. And he said, it's not gotten any easier. He's been doing it for months now. And he said, it's not gotten any easier, but it's probably would have been getting harder if he hadn't been doing it. You know what I mean? Dad got me into strength training. I think I was about 14 years old and he started taking me to the gym. And initially I was only allowed in the cardio room. And then I sort of finally weaseled my way into the weights room, but I was only allowed to do body weight stuff. And then I got onto the weights machines. And Dad, I think, really solidified for me the importance of taking care of yourself to some degree, at least to some degree. But he's, I think he's done a lot of reading and research over the years. Is happy to admit he doesn't have all of the answers, but I think he's done a really, really good job of taking care of himself and still being capable of doing so many of these things at 75 years old. And I said to him, that's one of my biggest inspirations. I want to get to 75 years old and still be able to do cool things. So that's been really inspiring. As far as stone lifting goes, I've mentioned it to him before. He seems to think it's really cool, and he's watched a bunch of videos, and he's been incredibly supportive of everything that I'm doing with regards to the Great Australian Stone Tour and whatever else. But he said to me fairly recently, I asked him if he'd like to meet up with me at Landsborough, just hang out and watch us lift a couple of stones. And he's like, I think I'd probably be stupid enough to give it a go, and I'll probably end up hurting myself. So I'm like, yeah, look, I see that. That's fair. I don't think I could be somewhere like that and not want to give it a go as well. So yeah, I want to help preserve his longevity and his well-being, not sort of go in the opposite direction with that.
Well, you'll have to find a stone for him then, because I think honestly, once you touch a stone, as I said, I had a gathering here this past weekend, and there were many people that had not lifted stones before. But once they see people doing it, and then they venture over and they touched one, and they're like, well, maybe I'll give it a go. And so they start with the 60-pound, and then they end up going to whatever that they can. Have you ever found that?
I've gotten some interesting expressions and looks from people. Like there have been a handful of places like Noosa, for instance, that stone on the beach. There were some people who were obviously sort of traveling and visiting over here and whatnot that were sort of sitting on the sideline and just watching and going, what is this guy doing? Like, why is he trying to pick up that rock? I don't know if they ever did quite work it out. They didn't ask any questions, but yeah, they definitely seemed very interested. And even that first one up on the mountain, it's interesting seeing people sort of witness it for the first time. Just while I think of it, I just want to go back to what you said though about putting hands on a stone. Even when I was rock climbing, there's been something that's felt so right about doing exactly that, just putting hands on a stone or on rock. And when I was climbing, that I like the way that my hands feel after doing so, which is probably rough and gross and pretty undesirable, but I love it. And I don't know. I'd always get around when I was rock climbing and sort of be like, oh, that'd be a really good hold, and you could hang on here, or you could just get my fingers over there. It was really, really cool. So I find the same thing now with stones, and I just anywhere that we go that sort of has a bunch of stones lying around, I'm like, stones, and just lock in on them. Like, I want to touch all of them. I want to try to lift them, and I feel like I'm a bit weird in that regard, but I don't feel like I'm weird alone, which is kind of cool.
No, and I kind of like gauge my audience when I start speaking like this because I have a connection with the Bear Van stone. It's very similar. When I touch it, there's an energy there. The same with Fiona. Both of them have really unique energies. And I do believe that they carry it. Like they carry the history, they carry the past and the vibration of the stone. So yeah, it's not the only reason I love stones, but it does give me grounding and it does give me focus and presence and it gets me back into my body, which was one of the biggest challenges with my mental health experience and growing up is that I was very dissociated from my body. And so stone lifting got me back into that. Stone lifting is obviously for strength, but do you feel like maybe with your parents who they are or where you're lifting some of these stones, do you think that there's like a spiritual or cultural dimension that's beyond strength in stone lifting?
I do, and I'm not sure that I can quite put my finger on it yet. I think, as I said, I mean the ties between the Irish culture and stone lifting. I've always been incredibly proud of both my Irish culture and my First Nations Australian culture. And as I said, I'd like to look into and do some more research on whether or not there's any history of Indigenous Australians using stone lifting as a test of strength or anything of a similar nature to that. But there's absolutely no way on earth that there isn't some sort of connection between, Indigenous Australians and these stones in some of these areas. There are so many sacred places within this country, and there are a handful of places that I'd really like to visit, both for the first time and even again if I've already been there. And I'd really like to place some stones in some of these locations. If I can find any information that sort of leads to any of these stones or any of this, there being any historic connection to any of them, it would be really, really wonderful. But there's no way that in some capacity, like Indigenous Australian history is mostly oral. There isn't a tremendous amount of it that's been written down. It's not very much of a written history. And I think there's definitely more to a lot of these places than a lot of us will ever know or understand or be able to find out about. But I'm going to try to speak to as many people as I can around the country and see if I can find. There are a whole lot of relatives as well that I'm looking forward to visiting. Some I'll be seeing again, and a lot that I'll be meeting for the first time. That idea really excites me. So I'm going to find out as much as I can. But even just from my dad's side of thing, and to know that on the Irish side of my heritage, it was something that was done for so long, and it was such a significant part of Irish culture. I feel very connected to it, and like it's something that I'm supposed to be doing, whether that's the case or not. Like I feel a connection there.
I agree with that sentiment 100%. So essentially, hopefully, we will have a lot of listeners here that do know some stone history. And so maybe in their research or maybe in their findings over the years, they can help you out. So hit the Great Australian Stone Tour up on Instagram. And your personal handle is
Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile Dundee. So you can hit him up if you do have any information on the history of stone lifting in Australia.
And please do, anybody who knows anything about it or has any ideas of any history or any way that it could be related to past Australian history, please do reach out. I would love to speak with you.
And so you'll be posting as you go along on your journey, all the lifts, the people that you meet, and that'll all be on your Stone Tour page, right?
Yeah, so at this stage, I think the Instagram sort of got a little bit of a head start on everything else, but I also created a Facebook page to go along with it, and that's essentially the same now. Everything that sort of goes up on the Instagram just automatically gets uploaded to the Facebook. But I also created a YouTube page with the idea that I might try to do something a little bit more outside of the Instagram and Facebook platforms. And the idea that I've got at the moment is that I'd like to start working on a docu-series. And well, I have started working on a docu-series. I'm hoping that I can I can put it all together and put something together that's worth watching. I've been collecting a ton of drone footage. I went and got myself a drone again specifically for this purpose. I've had a couple of interviews with people or sort of encounters where I got myself some interview mics as well. And there are a few people now that I've sort of had interactions with, and I'm really excited to start compiling all of this and just endless stone lifting footage. And I guess I'd just like to try to showcase Australia because it's a beautiful country that we have here as well. I think landscape wise, it's probably quite contrasting to Canada in some respects, and we have a lot of outback areas and a lot of beachy sort of areas and such, and we've got some mountainous alpine areas as well, but it's only sort of, I think, for a few months of the year that we get much in the way of snow and that it's cool here. I really love the cold, so I'm looking forward to running south during summer and getting away from the heat a tiny bit. Because the further north you are here, the hotter it is, from what I understand. But I think I really like the idea of showcasing this beautiful country that we have, and then also sort of being like, hey, we've got stones here too. Come have a go at lifting these. And I also just wanted to backtrack to something that you said before, and thank you so much for saying that you and your friend wanted to come to Australia. I've had a few people say that to me now. Oh, we've got a list of places to go for stone lifting, and Australia's now on that list, and that absolutely blows my mind and means the world to me. It's so cool to hear that it's cool to hear that people want to come to Australia, but especially to come to Australia to do something that I'm so passionate about and that I've played a role in I guess, trying to help create here. And I keep going back to and saying it's a collective effort. It's by no means just me doing this. Everybody who's contributed a stone to the tour has been a really, really special part of creating what it is that we're creating. But to hear that there are people internationally that want to come here now and have a go at it, and just to even think that there are people internationally that are watching what we're doing here, that's so awesome to me. So thank you again. That's, yeah.
No, for
Really
sure.
cool.
I mean, it is a big investment for that flight. Definitely. But back to the docu-series, I just wanted to mention something. So Utah Stones of Strength, they had a 2021 documentary about stone lifting in Utah, which was created by Bearcam Media, and it followed Ryan Stewart. Have you seen that?
I haven't
It's
actually
really
seen that one yet.
good. Yeah.
There's so much stone lifting media that I've been trying to absorb and trying to make the time to watch. And the Rogue documentaries, based on Iceland and Scotland and such. Then, David Keown has one that he's just recently done made of stone. And I felt really privileged to get some slightly earlier access to that than we probably would have originally gotten here in Australia. And yeah, it's just incredible watching all of these. And then Jarrett McPhee from New England Stone Lifting.
Yes.
And everything I'm finding more and more now, and I want to watch it all just to behold, all of the information that there is in it, and all of the beautiful scenery and the stones and the people and everything, and just to see some of these people like, hey, I kind of know that guy now. I've spoken to him, and all of the lifting, but just to also, I think all of those things will provide me with tremendous inspiration and help me sort of work out how I'm going to approach things. Obviously not going to, nor could I here in Australia, copy anybody, but I think every little thing that I've taken in and watched, I'm like, this is so inspiring, you know what I mean? And has given me some ideas to work with. So yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that. I'll definitely have to check that one out as well.
Yeah, I think it would align with the whole, or even the New England style. Like, I think it'll align with what you're trying to do in Australia. But get back to me on that and let me know what you think.
Yeah,
I think it's
please.
34 minutes or something. It's not incredibly long.
Just spam me with stone lifting documentaries and content
No
if you can,
problem.
please.
No problem. I can do that. So speaking about spamming, we're going to spam the audience with a question that I'm going to ask every interviewee. What essentially would be 3 pieces of advice for a stone lifter? And I know you're somewhat new in the stone lifting game, but it doesn't have to be per se related to stone lifting itself. It can relate to resilience, travel, anything that you think is a key takeaway that the audience would like to kind of keep in mind as they part from the show.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you sort of giving me a heads up on this one, because it did take a little bit of thought, and I don't know that I'm really qualified to give advice as such on a whole array of subjects, but I guess I can give my personal take on some of them if you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I considered was with regards to stone lifting, give it a go, people. Like I feel like it's literally, at the risk of sounding a bit over dramatic, it's sort of been life changing for me. The people that I've met or networked with, and the people that I'm yet to meet, have been absolutely incredible. It's an amazing way to sort of test your limits, and it's inspired me to continue training and taking care of myself and trying to exceed them. It's I think it's got the capacity to really grow on somebody and to potentially be life changing. I honestly feel like it has been for me.
I do agree with that. It's life changing.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you do. And I think a lot of people that have done it would probably have, to some degree, felt the same way. You know what I mean? It's otherwise we probably wouldn't still be out there trying to lift up big stones. Yeah, it's a really, really special thing to be involved in, and it's a really, really special community to be involved in. I'm so grateful to have found it. With regards to the travel side of things, I sort of considered that the world, as I said earlier, it's an enormous place, and I feel like I could travel just in Australia for the rest of my life and not experience all of it. So I think while I have the capacity to not only do the travel, but you climb the mountains and do the hikes and swim in the streams and lift the stones, I want to do that. I think a lot of people don't sort of get the same opportunities, and I know that it's like some of it can be a lot harder for some people to lash out into and to do, and I very much understand that. But if I'd recommend to anybody, if they have the capacity and the ability to get out and experience at least some of this world, I think it's a really, really worthwhile experience and worthwhile doing. With regards to resilience as well, I think we're capable of so much more than we think, and that's pretty well across the board. Like, I've seen some people achieve some really, really amazing things that they didn't think that they were able to. And I feel like I've achieved some, some pretty cool things over the years as well that I didn't think I was capable of. My mum, with her decades of quite severe illness now, has still continued achieving things and inspiring me in so many ways. But even just in that, she's held on and she's continued to live despite her struggles. And then my father, as we said, like, I think at the age of 75, he's still got a long way to go, I'd like to think. It's as he said to me when I visited him recently, he's cruising along there. He's probably in the last quarter of his life now, and he's still out there doing a whole lot of things that a lot of people who are a lot younger probably don't believe that they can do. So yeah, I think it's worth just getting out there and experiencing things, experiencing life, having a bit more faith in yourself. And if you can't do something yet, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to. And go lift some stones, because it's really cool.
No, that's fantastic. And, I was thinking, just as you were speaking about Ronaldo and him going out and lifting a stone that he was over his capacity, of which he thought was his capacity. And there's been so many times that I've lifted when I'm here home lifting in my gym. I have like a ton of stones in my garage, my stone gym. And that's one thing. But when I'm out with my friends or with Jamie, I exceed my capacity tenfold. And it could be the adrenaline and all of that, but I really do think it's who you're with. And I think it's community, and I think it's the positivity of it. I think it's the sharing of the experience that allows you to just like do things that you never thought you could. So like I really resonate with that, because a lot of the stone tours that I've been on, I didn't think I was going to lift some of the stones. And then I got there and I did.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I feel that on a spiritual level, like that whoever they are, they say that you're the summary of the 5 people that you spend the most time about, or like an accumulation of the 5 people that you spend the most time around. And I think there's quite an element of truth to that. If you're around sort of people who are probably less good for what it is that you're trying to achieve or what you align with in life, you can sort of find yourself drifting a little bit from who you feel that you are, or the path that you want to be on. But if you're around people who are doing the things that you want to be doing and achieving these things, and that can help build you up, I think it makes such a tremendous difference. And yeah, again, that I can't say enough positive about the stone lifting community. And the way that everybody has responded to me reaching out to them, the people that have surprised me by reaching out to me, and just the interactions that I've had have been incredible. And getting out and lifting with other people has been amazing. And all of the experience that I've had with it so far has just been incredible. And I think he was really surprised with himself because he weighed that Black Creek stone. And something I've enjoyed doing is trying to lift a stone before I weigh it. And I'm like, I want to find out after I pick this thing up and find out if I can do it. I want to, and if I can't, that's fine as well. I've got one in particular that I affectionately named the Cow Patty Stone, and that's one that I've not put up on the Stone Tour page yet, but it's on the Crocodile Dundee page, and it bested me. I've picked up heavier stones. I think the heaviest one that I've lifted with any degree of success so far was about 135 kilos, which I plan to absolutely demolish and go above and beyond at some stage. But at this point in time, as I said, I'm sort of working on my strength to do so. And I'm not an enormous guy by any stretch. 135 is pretty good. This one was 128, and all I've managed to do so far is get it to lap. That's another one that's pretty special to me. And I think something that I loved about it was that it kicked my backside, and it didn't play the game. It didn't let me pick it up yet. But yeah, I think going out, having a go at that and being like, geez, this feels really heavy and really off balanced, and it's quite an interesting shape. And then weighing it and being like, for me, that probably is pretty heavy. It was cool with Ronaldo. I gave him a bit of an idea of how heavy the larger of the Black Creek stones was, but we didn't end up weighing it until we didn't end up weighing it until after he had lifted it. And then he was like, wow, that's heaps heavier than I'd lifted before. Like I wouldn't have thought I could lift something that heavy. And it's like, well, you just did, man. And then when I went up and weighed this one, he named it the Reclamation Stone, which is a really, really cool name. And on the Great Australian Stone Tour page, it has a description. I actually asked him for his permission to share with the world or anybody who's looking his reason for naming it that. That one was heaps heavier than he thought he could lift as well. And it was just like, dude, I think, again, we're all capable of more than we think, but having some community to sort of cheer you on along the way can make the absolute world of difference. So
For sure. So we've went on like way longer than I thought we would. So a final cheer.
Cheers, Sloanche.
Thank you so much, Shaun, for sharing your story. I am very excited to follow it over the next few months and imparting us with kind of the wisdom and thoughts today on stone lifting and the community. And are there any final thoughts or reflections you'd like to leave with the listeners as they embark on their own journey?
I think in the interest of not going too much further over, I probably won't go through a list of names, but I'd just like to thank absolutely every person, and you'll all know who you are if you happen to be watching or listening to this, everybody who has invested the time into helping me along this journey and inspire it, who's given me the time of day to speak to me, and everybody who's contributed to the Great Australian Stone Tour, everybody who's been encouraging my mum, my dad, my partner, and you, Beck, for having me on the show today. It means the world to me that you were interested enough in what I had to say, just some random dude from Australia. That you asked me to come and be on your podcast. So yeah, just thank you to everybody who's had any part to play in this. Also, thank you to my friends John and Chloe, who made me this little Crocodile Dundee. I've had it sitting on the table in front of me the whole time, and I just had to bring it out.
That's fantastic.
I the little Crocodile Dundee 2.0 with the beard and everything. I couldn't get over that. And he's been sitting on the table in front of me this whole time. And I just looked over and I was like, I want to say thank you to these guys as well. Like that's one of the coolest gifts I've ever been given. It just goes to show there's some really special people out there. And for somebody to have it made me such a cool personalized gift. Yeah, it really touched me. So I just wanted to swing him out on the camera.
Has to go. No, for sure. And I think he has to be part of the stone lifting tour. I think
he's coming for the tour.
Perfect. Well, thanks again so much for your time today and your patience and the time zone difference and us sorting that out. That was a first for me, but we wish you all the best on the Great Australian Stone Tour. And thanks so much.
You're so welcome, Rebecca. Thank you as well.